is the wall to those who fell in the Warsaw Uprising at the Warsaw Uprising Museum. Today, we meet a remarkable man, 10 when the Second World War broke out, 12 when he joined the underground, 13 when he was tortured by the Gestapo, 15 when he took part in the Warsaw Uprising itself. This is the remarkable story of Professor Julian Kulski. Join me on Poland Daily History as we look at this remarkable man's story and his remarkable life. And so then the war broke out, and you returned to Warsaw. And in the early days of the war, what was the sort of the immediate impact on your life as a 10-year-old? How did daily life change for you?
Well, one of the things was that the house was, the windows were broken, and it wasn't quite the same home. But a few days later, I was going to school. I went to school, which was just across the Polish Army Boulevard, and there was also a sign that the school has been closed. Well, I never liked school as a 10-year-old, so I was rather happy.
So this is the second good thing
the second good thing that Hitler has done.
Yes, he's doing quite well so far in this program.
I came home, and then I ran into my past scoutmaster, Ludwig Berger, and I was very happy to see him.
Yeah, and then there was, as I understand, there was a sort of program of underground schools where you could go and be taught sort of in secret. You all had to arrive at school at a separate time so as not to alert the Germans.
Yes, I went to a few of these classes. I wasn't particularly interested. I was much more interested in having dates with girls at that age and with trying to fight than being bored in classrooms.
Yes, I can see that. And at what stage at that time did you think that you, as a child, at 10, 11, would actually physically be involved in some form of fighting?
Well, I started off by, I think, I had nothing to do except to read books and go around Żoliborz and pick out dead bombs, and then take them home, and we'd take out the powder out of it and trying to make bombs ourselves. That was at 11 years old. And it was rather dangerous. My friend got almost killed, lost a leg and an arm. And my father was appointed immediately after Starzyński was killed by the Germans in December 1939, was appointed as the president of underground Poland, and at the same time appointed by the Germans as the Bürgermeister, as the mayor, because the German as the head of the, as president of the city. So my father heard about my activities and that I was going to get into trouble, and that either I would get him into trouble or he would get me arrested, because he was being arrested all the time at home. So he arranged to have me move in with with Ludwig Berger, who was my pre-war a master in
the Scouts.
In the Scouts, yeah.
Yes.
Scoutmaster.
And he lived on ulica Chojnackiego.
That's right, which is not far from
No, in
my
fact,
house.
I
Felinsky
actually
Street.
lived on ulica Chojnackiego for
Oh,
a few
you
years
did?
as well. Yes, I rented a house there.
But you know where Felinsky Street is?
Yes.
It's only two blocks away. So it wasn't that far from home. And I could drop in once in a while.
I think in reading the book, you were quite happy to move in with Ludwig because at home you felt this was a house full of women, and the prospects for a life of excitement were rather limited with your aunt and son.
12-year-old, I liked girls, but I didn't like
not ones you were related
women.
to. Yes, exactly.
They all wanted to tell me what to do, and I didn't appreciate it then, and I don't appreciate it now.
Yes, and I can see that. And so this is, of course, a new phase in your adventure that you're. But when you were living with Ludwig, I imagine you visited home quite frequently.
Yes, I dropped in once in a while.
And how easy at that time was, well, obviously not daily life. I mean, in terms of getting food, just sort of. Because one thing that strikes me in reading the book is, on the one hand, there are your adventures, which we'll talk about later, as an underground fighter, and these very brave things you do. And then on the other hand, there are these stories of visiting friends who'll just hop on the tram and go off to Prague or somewhere or other parts of Warsaw. And I'm just wondering how easy daily life was for most people, or whether it was a constant worry that the tram would be stopped and the Germans would just take off 6 people and shoot them at random.
Well, there was no question. The Germans continues to stop the trams and arrest people, take them for slave labor or to catch people they were looking for in particular. So, and there were, at night, there was always the sirens of the Gestapo, and there was the police hour, so you were not supposed to go out after a certain time. So, no, but as a boy, I was just furious at the whole thing that they came into my beautiful city and were acting like that. And so I really wanted to join as much as possible. And fortunately, my father handed me over to Ludwig Berger, who was the first organizer in 1939 of the first group of underground soldiers, mostly from from the scouting, and he was a company commander. He had about 150 of us, and living with Ludwig, I became his runner, and that's how I used to go around the city with various secret messages. That happened for about a year and a half, including into the Jewish ghetto, and but later on, I started training as a regular soldier when I was 13.
And when you were acting in the early days as a courier, as a child, were the Germans aware that children were doing these things, or did they assume this was just a mischievous young boy running around as mischievous young boys do?
I don't think they suspected it, but they hated all of us, including children. I mean, I saw an incident in Żoliborz in 1940 when a little boy came in and started playing with a military motorcycle, and the guy came out and shot him right there. You know, he was about my age, but probably was 12. So they. One of the things that bothers me today is that the Germans were able to make us talk about them as Nazis. Well, in the 5 years that I was here as a slave, in a way, fighting, I didn't see a single Nazi. They were all Germans. Yes. And this bothers me, just like the first thing about how they dividing now after the war, and I don't know why the English and the Americans went along with it. But
well, it is odd, isn't it? And that's probably something we might touch on a bit later. But there's this habit these days of rewriting history to meet modern political or modern
correct
modern sensibilities. Right. And so, because you live in America now. One thinks also of the American Civil War, which was a fought about states' rights, but in the modern world has become a fight against slavery, which of course it never was at the time. But so you're saying in actual fact that from your point of view as living under this sort of military occupation, which obviously is what it was, for you these were German soldiers, and if you were lucky they left you in peace to a certain extent. If you're unlucky, you might meet the madman who got out of bed the wrong side with his pistol and just wanted to shoot at somebody because that's just the way he felt. And did that, and I've read it on other occasions that one of the things that people find very difficult when they're being occupied in this way is it's not that you're being occupied and these are bad people, but it's that the sheer unpredictability of the rules. I think when I've read it in relation to people in concentration camps, it wasn't that these were evil places, which was bad enough, but it's you couldn't really plan your day to know how to avoid the evil consequences because the violence was so random. I mean, well, did you sense any of that in walking around Warsaw at the time?
You mean before I was arrested?
Yes, before. I'm just talking about before you were arrested.
Yes, it was quite obvious. I've lost my favorite uncle in Auschwitz. My father was arrested within the first 2 years twice and almost shot. So that, and I knew my friends' fathers and mothers who were also killed. So this was just part of the day, and we knew right away, within 12 months, that the Germans wanted the land, and they didn't want us.
No.
And sooner or later we'd be gone. And this is why there was such a resistance, because we had nothing to lose.